What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Golf Bag live stream. Got it kicked off only 20 minutes late of what we thought. So give me just a second. We're going to pull it up, talk a little bit about Farmers Insurance Open, do some questions and answers if there are any. We got a couple people from Discord probably popping in here. And then we're going to build lineups using LineupIQ. We're going to load in. We ran just for fun, ran a 15,000 lineup pool. We're going to sim those and see what the portfolio spits out. We are also going to run some showdown because there's a drastic difference in the showdown projections. If you look, it should be everywhere, to be honest. But if you look at ours, the guys at the top of the pricing, you should probably leave a good bit of salary. But there's the guys at the top of the pricing are nowhere near the same projections as Goddard, Maverick McNeely, guys that are projected over 40 points. So we'll look at that. Obviously, there's a big reason for that being about 2-stroke difference in scoring. So let's go ahead and we'll jump right into it, I think. All right. So like I said, I got a bunch of lineups pulled. We'll run a couple different builds. We can hop into FGB Studio and look at stats or look at player profiles if anybody has any specific questions. Currently, I have the FanDuel slate. I have the main DraftKings slate and the round one slate, which we'll look at with the projection difference, like I was just talking about. McNeely, Goddard, Hideki, 47 to 45 points. Obviously, there's a 13 or so point standard deviation. If you looked at the actual salaries, because they're playing the North Course versus the South Course, all these top guys, Xander, Aberg, Cantley, Cameron Young, all 37, 38 points. Same with Siwoo, JJ Spawn, Harris English, on down the line. So very different. For round one, and obviously it'll be the same for round two. So for this, though, let's go hit the regular. Let me just run this wide open. Let me just run 5,000. And like I said, let me pull up the chat and make sure I am following that. And if anybody, if you're still in the Fantasy Golf Bag Discord, I would encourage you to hop into YouTube or the X chat, and I'll probably see that better. Otherwise, I'm juggling 3 chats, and it's going to be a little tricky. So let's run this. Let's see what the exposures look like originally. And while that runs, I'll pull up FGB Studio. We'll have that going. And let's see. Yeah, just tinkering with different things. So I'll just pull up a standard model and we'll look at that. And have that ready. We'll do the last year just so we can have like some very generic data that we'll look at. We can look at the golf courses if you guys want to, but that's probably been beaten over your head. My article's already posted. So if you go to content, blog and articles, it'll be the first one there in the top left. You can read the thoughts on using Studio this week, and obviously LineupIQ with exposures, etc. So Yeah, we'll use this up in just a second. So let's go ahead and do, I guess we'll do 1,000, or we'll just go ahead and import all these. Let's see. Where is my export? Right here. How do we got? We'll see how long this takes to sim. So we got 15,000 exposures on the 15,000. Should be pretty close to the field. That's the idea. So you can see this here, hopefully pretty well on the screen. Yeah, pretty well. So in this field of 15,000 lineups, got 28% Xander, 20% Cameron Young, 19% Aberg. So all within about a percentage, we'll call it. So pretty close. You could look at pairs. Xander's paired a bunch with, let's see, he's paired a bunch with Patrick Rogers. Makes sense. Patrick's owned at 14%. Same with Nikolai Hogard. So all these guys are pretty popular as cheap fillers, and they're going to be paired most commonly with Xander. So again, if you throw, I don't know what that is, 100%, 28, 20%. So he's like at 16%, I think. It's rough math. 800 out of 15,000. And then you can see who else is paired. So Nikolai Hogard, Sam Stevens. So these are like the common ones in the sims that will help you avoid those common. They're not even dupes, but like when you have 3, 4, 5 guys overlapping, obviously you're going to struggle with being different. Even with 1 or 2 guys being different, you got a lot of ground to catch, or not even ground to catch up. You're just really fighting tooth and nail with 4 guys or 5 guys even, which would be even worse. 1 guy, you're really, 1 or 2 guys, you're really fighting an uphill battle. So all that to say, we got 15,000 in here. We are going to run. Let's see how fast the regular ones go, and I can make another build with the other 15. So let's just run this wide open. Probably take 2 minutes probably. And I'm curious to see what that does. After that runs, we're going to run to see. Let's see if it'll run while I'm doing this. It should. 16, 17, just double checking. I implemented this on Monday, so let's hope that it's working good. 16, 17, and now we're at 23. Perfect. All right. So now I'm gonna import another 15,000. So same field. So again, the big fields are like 50,000, which eventually we'll get to. It's just a pain on a lot of different levels of both getting it right, and there's some you're probably not gaining a bunch the more you get over 10,000 is probably okay, but like even 20,000, once you get to 20, 50, unless it's like, a milli maker and it's 150,000 entries, you're probably not gaining a ton in terms of this. And it's also a very intensive process, especially when I'm streaming, which is kind of annoying. So we're at 50% for the first set here, 57%. We will run. Fantastic. Now it's running on both. So we'll let this run, and then I'll just do the other one with the portfolios here in just a second. So add that to the list. When I import the same lineups, it'll just sim them in both. And then we can look at round 1 here in just a second. So 75%. We'll give it another second. Again, the things that I'm going to look out for in terms of running this. So ideally, we would have already used FGB Studio and kind of figured out with tee times of courses. Like if I just wanted to look at certain courses for round 1 or round 2, tee times, etc., and I have all the models built in, and I just want to focus on like my player pool, right? So like I go through everybody, and I checked out my 40 guys. Then I can import it into here, and then run the lineups just off of my player pool. Ideally, that would just be the simple way to go for this demonstration for the Farmers Insurance Open. Obviously, with knowing what we're likely going to see for ownerships, I'm just going to load in this pool of lineups my intent is to see for guys like Xander, really the high owned guys. So we got mid stakes, low stakes, high stakes. I'm just doing mid stakes for this one. Xander, Cameron Young, Aberg, Goddard, Maverick McNeely. So you can see all the exposures in this pool are aligned with the ownership. I want to see which of these guys I'm going to go over or under in terms of what the sims spit out. That is the goal. So let's see. Let's do. So again, 15,000. These are really like what your win percentages look like. So if you guys are ever wondering what it's like to win a GPP, you're looking at a 0.1% chance until you get over the cut line, and then it starts to spike quite a bit. So we can do, I'll just favorite these really quick. Let's do, and then I'll run the portfolio next. And again, just going to compare this to what the ownership is. We'll just do guys over 5. And then I also like to take gaps. So without going down an entire tutorial, you have obviously lineups and players that are boom and bust. So guys that can win fairly frequently can also just finish dead last. Then there's guys that are like not quite getting over the line, but there are a lot of top high finishes that are consistent. They're getting you into the top 1%. Then there's another threshold of guys that, do a lot in the top 5. They're never winning. So my goal is when I go through this, obviously the win is number one, top 1%. There'll be a gap between like those finishing in the top 1 quite a lot, and then the top 5, etc. So then just trying to pick up those gaps from this pool. So we'll just do that. We're at 41. We'll just do 50. Be nice and clean. Let's do. And we'll go to 60. And then again, we're going to just compare exposures. And this will give you an idea in terms of what, I mean, I've talked about this plenty of times. Like there's a lot of data, obviously, we can look at. Projections kind of do the heavy lifting for you, which is nice if they're good, where you can quantify, you're really, we've talked about this forever with sample size and stuff like that. Like Will Zalatoris, he's got 4 rounds and 2 rounds of shot length. How do you weight that compared to Garrick Higo? Or if we go back, to 36 rounds, if we run that, and now we're looking at guys with 28 rounds versus 7 versus 20. It's all it can be tricky. Like, how do you really quantify Zalatoris' form with 4 rounds versus looking at Homa's form at 20 rounds? Projections should take all that into account and be a pretty close determination on where their scores are going to fall. Obviously, it's a bimodal distribution for golf. So it's not a super clean, just, mean projection and standard deviation. But for the purposes of simulating 15,000 lineups, it gets the job done pretty close. So the point there is really just like leaning in the projections and seeing what spits out as being under-owned or over-owned is a big part of it. So looking at this, we have, let's see, you can do it a couple different ways. So first, the highest owned guys. So we got Xander right at the field, in which you'll see a lot of top players do this exact same thing. There's usually 1, 2, 3 high owned studs, we'll call them, mid-priced to high-priced. They typically match the field, and you can look through most guys' lineups. You can go into our contest tool and look at past, anybody's entries. Typically, you'll see a core kind of built around those top guys, with the exception of Scheffler, where guys tend to go about 3x or just completely fade, where they're not going to burn themselves if Xander misses the cut. They're also not going to burn themselves if he wins. They just take the stance that he's high priced, decent projection, high own for a reason, match the field and get different elsewhere. It's a pretty standard strategy. So you can see here for the highest owned in the field, scroll down just a little bit. Xander, we'll call that about matching the field, right? 24% to 27%. Cameron Young under 10 to 19. Aberg under. Goddard up about the field. We'll call it. It's a little bit under, but we'll call it the field. Maverick McNeely starts to go over. Jason Day's a complete fade. Hideki's mostly a fade. Siwoo Kim's overweight. JJ Spawn's overweight. So it gives you a good idea of where it goes. Then you can start to kind of tinker with your pool and build more after that. As far as the highest exposure in this, Patrick Rogers is double the field. Take that for what it's worth. I mean, he's obviously been good. Go find him really quick. I mean, grades out pretty well, obviously. Good recent form, T6, miscut, T7, T3, T44. People like approach numbers. A spectrum, about the same, pretty mediocre on approach. Off the tees have been good, which is going to be a nice thing here. And then for this event, he has a lot of upside, right? Miscuts and top 10s. Not a bad thing for PGA DFS. Not a bad thing for betting either, although the outright's probably a moot point. But seeing some top 10s, Cali kid, there's a narrative around it. But he's also playing good. So I get it. Projections reflect that. And that leads to that, basically double the field. We'll trim some of this. We won't go all the way there. And like I said, we'll run the portfolio and we'll see if that comes down a good bit. Torbjornsson, honestly, 11% at 7,600. That probably is wrong. And maybe it is wrong. I see that pretty close, 10 to 15% on most places. So we'll see. But yeah, we like that. Guys long, good course fit. Grinder, Michael Thorbjornsson, 35%, 3x the field. Davis Thompson, we got Patrick Cantley, JJ Spawn again, Siwoo Kim, Adam Scott, Xander Schauffele just matching the field. Harris English, Maverick McNeely. So really, if you look at the top owned guys, what we spit out is matching the field with Xander, overweight on Cantley, and then basically underweight or half the field on all the other top guys. So let's go look at, let's see. We'll run this in there again. So now instead of doing, let me get rid of all my favorites. So now instead of doing just raw sims, I'm going to do a portfolio. And just we could do it a couple different ways. Let's just do 20 as a real, like most people enter 10 to 20 lineups, generally speaking. You have guys like McLovin with 794, can't fade me, with 625 or so last week. 20, honestly, 10 to 20 is what most people play. Some people play less than 10, which is fine. So let's do that. You can respect exposures, which I'm not going to. I just want to see what it runs. So this will take, another 2 minutes. So we'll let that run through. And then we'll get our final portfolio of 20 lineups. And I want to see how that differs from what we just showed in the favorites from the first run. Just kind of wide open and raw. So while that runs, let me check if anything. Fantastic. No. Hopefully it's not lagging. So we're 22%. So we'll let that go. I don't know if there's anybody interesting. We were talking in chat just a little bit ago about Sudarshan. Guy's been pretty good. Spectrum wise, strokes gained wise, T13 Sony Open, miscut last week. Spectrum likes him on approach, off the tee. Plug in a few Sudarshans. Who else is popping? I did one. Yeah, this is a good one. So Higo, Mac Meissner, Max McGreevy, good values. Pearson Cootie, fantastic at 7,400. Honestly, at this stage of 2026, I think everybody's pretty much. That's why I think it's become cliche over the last 5 years since COVID with Sims and everything. But when everybody's kind of on the same plays, it does matter if you can nuance the ownerships and like we hear. I mean, I've seen content. Everyone's seen content. There'll be something about what was Xander's ownership? 27%. Let's just say that's correct. Someone will just throw it, and Brick has talked about this plenty of times. Someone will say 27%, too high owned, can't play it. How do you know that's too high owned? Like, is it like, do you play him at 20%? Do you play him at 15%? You don't just fade. Like, how do you determine that 27.5 is an actual just fade? Like 0%. So I think there's a lot of nuance as we gravitate towards kind of an equilibrium in terms of what everybody lands on. And that's why projections and ownership have gotten so good. But leaning into it just a little bit more, figuring out, 27.5, 24%, which we just showed in that first run, that may or may not be right. It's probably close, but it's not like just someone saying 27.5%. That's obviously a fade. We'll just do 0%. Like, you're just pulling things out of your ass, and you can't just say you're locking them in. You could do that with Scotty, and you've been getting away with it for 3 years now. But yeah, you got to have some type of metric or reason behind it. Everyone's going to land on the same plays. It's just the nature of where things have gravitated the last couple of years, really in all sports. Golf's even more simple because there's no correlation really, besides there's no correlation between players. There's obviously correlation with, like, you play the North Course and you're getting an advantage. But it's a lot more simple than, football with correlations that are very complex. So it's very, individual. This player's this owned. We can see what he's paired with, avoid some of those pairs. That's one avenue that helps out quite a bit. And then sometimes it's just simply like the Jason Day, 16.5% at 9,600. Projections are slightly lower than, people around him, or even cheaper than him. He's a 0%. So, all right, this just ran. Let's see what this shows. I'll just favorite it so it's easier for us to see. We'll do all 20. Fingers crossed. 15,000 down to 20 will be interesting. So you can also see down here the way the portfolios work. It's not always just taking the top X lineups. It's a balance with exposures, basically making sure you're not coupling yourself into a bunch of the same pairings or same groups, doubles, triples, etc. So let's see. So we have 20 lineups. We have Patrick Rogers again continues to slide up. Xander goes up a little bit. I would still argue that's pretty close to the field. If you think about 20 lineups, you're talking about 10 versus 5. It's reasonable, or even 6 if we round that up. So 6 to 10 lineups. Adam Scott quite a bit higher the field, and that's the other thing with ownership too, which is funny. Exposures. Haven't seen this as much lately, which is nice to see. But you would see people all the time. I'm 50%. I have 50% exposure to Adam Scott because you played 4 lineups and he was in 2 of them. That is not the same as 50% exposure to Adam Scott in 150 lineups. There's just zero. There's no way you could say you're overweight the field with your 2 lineups of Adam Scott versus someone that ran 150 lineups with Adam Scott and played him in 75. It's not the same thing, but people will say it. I was overweight. Adam Scott, my 50% was overweight. You played 2 lineups out of 35,000 people. You're not overweight. All right. So continuing down, we got, definitely bigger spreads and more, concentration around these guys that are cheap, filling them in with Xander Schauffele. Let's look at the salaries and kind of just see what the lineup construction starts to look like. So Xander, JJ Spawn, Siwoo Kim are kind of like the 3 core plays, I guess, around that. Obviously, Siwoo Kim, not the best course history, a little bit up and down. Honestly, I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was a bunch of up. but definitely nothing that pops off. Just been playing great. JJ Spawn, you could argue both ways on if it's a great course fit due to the length. I think it's a great scoring fit for JJ Spawn. I don't hate that at all. I like JJ Spawn this week, but I don't, you could say the distance could be a factor, maybe. But I think JJ Spawn for a golf course that's going to play outside of the North Course, play 1.5 strokes under par at the low end. I think that's fantastic for JJ Spawn. And then it's really just a sprinkle with Aberg, Cantley, Cameron Young. So I don't know if Xander's even paired. Yeah, so you can see pretty clearly. Actually, let me go back to the salary side. Aberg, none of these expensive guys. The first player being played with Aberg is Goddard. We can go to the next one. Cantley. Play Cantley. He's getting paired with Xander quite a bit, which is interesting. So every lineup that Patrick Cantley's played in this pool of 20 is paired with Xander. Very interesting. We have Cameron Young also getting paired with Xander. So you're basically just doing stars and scrubs. Who else is being paired with Cameron Young and Xander Schauffele? Let's just look at these lineups. So we go all the way down because it's going to be some cheap guys. How many are we talking about here? No, it's one. That's why. 5% is one lineup. There we go. So that's why he's 100% in the one lineup. Siwoo Kim. Let's see where he's paired with. Xander, 60%. JJ Spawn, 40%. Pretty balanced. I doubt JJ's with Xander at all. Yeah, there's no way that's going to work. And then when JJ Spawn's paired with Siwoo Kim, a bunch of Maverick McNeely. So kind of a balanced build there. Siwoo Kim, JJ Spawn, 9,500, 9,400. Maverick McNeely, 8,900. So I can see where it's starting to go with, two different types of lineup constructions, which is nice to see. Not something I have to really focus on or debate, I guess, because there's nuance in how you want to construct these lineups. Toe Tag and Tambo talks about this all the time. It's not who you play, it's how you play them. And that's definitely true. You can play, obviously there's a certain level of Xander Schauffele's 90% owned. That's probably the few scenarios where it's a 0% play. But there's definitely levels to it where, yeah, you could play basically anybody at any ownership, generally speaking. Obviously, there's arguments for that. It just depends on how you play them. Obviously, you can't play Xander at 50%. If he's 50% owned, and you can't play him with Siwoo Kim if he's also 50% owned. That's not going to work. So, it does matter how you construct it. Let's see. Taylor Pendrith like that quite a bit. Let's see who he's paired with. JJ Spawn as well. Hideki, McNeely, Adam Scott, Rasmus Hogarth, Sam Stevens. All guys you're probably already playing. It's just a matter of how you construct the combination. So, and then I guess the last thing, let's just go by projection. So you can see even in like the highest projections, it's gravitating towards certain builds. So like there's a certain projection bump on Xander over Aberg and Cantley. If that goes down, that's probably takes Xander down quite a bit. So there's nuance in the projections themselves. But then as you go down into the projections, you'll see these big gaps. You'll see spikes around guys that are just a little bit more, he's got like Patrick Rodgers, 58 points projected versus Wyndham Clark at the same projection, but 8,500. So yeah, Patrick Rodgers starts to get a big spike. And now we're just going through all the cheap guys, and we don't want to play any of the cheap guys, which also makes a good bit of sense. None of these guys that have decent enough projections to even warrant it. So Heath Thagala, Christian Bezadenhout in one each, Max Grieserman, Olesen. So just some sprinkles on guys. So, okay, let's go ahead and dive into the showdown because I think that'll also be interesting. With all that being said, kind of closing out that segment, I guess, obviously there's not to beat a dead horse, but as far as the nuance with ownership, it definitely helps to use projections and use sims. I think that's without being said. Again, using your own research, going through players, figuring out guys you want to play, and just seeing how they fit with lineups is a big part of it. So like you can have the edge in what you think are the best plays this week. You could pick out 40 guys, and 10 of those 40 guys are going to finish in the top 20. That's a huge edge. How you construct them together is also very important. Just having those 40 guys, you could have a bad week with the wrong pairing. So using this up, comparing the ownerships, comparing the exposures that are getting spit out, tinkering with the projections, seeing how that shifts, all that stuff matters. So, all right, let's look at the showdown. We have FanDuel as well for round one, the same projections. I don't know if anyone looks at FanDuel projections much besides Mock Lovin, who just hammers, $75 to first contests on FanDuel, which is great for the ecosystem. But yeah, the point projections on FanDuel are just crazy different than DraftKings on FanDuel than DraftKings. Hopefully I said that right. So you can see, we're talking about like good scores around 20 to 25 points. And we go to DraftKings, we're talking about 40. And this is a tough, generally a tough golf course, right? This isn't the American Express. We're talking about 40 to 45 points as being a good score, median score. So what I wanted to point out, though, is for the courses. So the guys that are playing the South course versus the North course, it's about could be a range, but we'll say 1.5 to 2.5 stroke difference, which can be pretty substantial. I mean, that could be like 6 to 12 points different in fantasy scoring in terms of what the birdie difference is. Bogey's not so much, but definitely the birdies. You can see already with how Xander was the highest projected on the full slate, 38 points here, 37, 37, 37. Now we have Jason Day, 8 points higher than Xander Schauffele, just because he's playing a different golf course. Hideki, the same thing. I think Maverick McNeely and Goddard are also really highly projected. So it makes a huge difference. For the 4 days, it doesn't make a difference. Like maybe if there's wind or there's certain conditions that yield tougher scoring on one course, like if it's super windy, you're playing the South course, yeah, maybe the scoring average discrepancy goes through the roof. But in terms of showdown, playing the right golf course with a 2.5 stroke difference is a big deal. Last week with a 3-course rotation, obviously the stadium course still yielded some decent scores, but most people focused on La Quinta and then the Nicklaus tournament course. They were pretty close. There was low scores on both. With 2 courses like this that are, like I said, 6 to 12 point difference in fantasy points, depending on which one they're playing, that's a huge difference in the lineups that you're going to build. I'm curious when we run this, how many of these, we'll just go ahead and kick it off because it might take a second. Let's just run 2,500. I'm going to leave a good bit of salary and let's see how that looks. So we'll let that run. Lost my thought, but basically in terms of like the projections for the North course, for the South course, that's what I was going to say with the Sims, basically seeing what the lineups that we build, they're going to be pretty close with the projections already, but let's see how many of these expensive guys that are top tier, obviously, are going to get plugged into here. With the discrepancy of 6 to 12 points, it's a huge difference. So again, not to beat a dead horse, we got Jason Day here, who was being faded in the tournament, and for round one, because he's playing the North course, we have him in just the raw first run of lineups in 25%. Xander still 22%. Interesting. Hideki 22%. I assume Xander is just boom and bust. Who is he getting paired with? Nobody. He's getting spread out between all the guys, 88, 95, 89, 81, 92. So it's basically Xander and one other expensive guy. Nobody's really getting jammed together with. So let's go ahead and run this and see what spits out. And then we got, it's honestly pretty spread out, which makes sense. With Showdown, you'll see this all the time with guys that are getting played at 1%. sharp players playing guys that 1% or 0.7% owned. It's a small variance between projections and what the standard deviation shows. And just in real life, honestly, it's like the difference between Hideki shooting 68 and Sam Stevens shooting 69. It's pretty small. All right. So this ran, I did 20 again. Let's just favorite those and let's see what, or actually I can just export these and then I'll just load them back in and look at the exposure. That'll be easier. Then I don't want to favorite them. They're still favorited, but all right. So with those, kind of as expected, let's go off of the salaries. We could do off the salaries or the points. So yeah, so like this is a pretty good example. When you run a bunch of lineups and it's finding all these different possibilities with Xander on his higher end, yeah, he could be in optimal lineups. On his lower end, obviously, even on his median, he's probably not even in good lineups. So like there's a range of outcomes where Xander's plausible to be in lineups. Now when we start to run the sims and see how do those lineups with Xander do more time than not with everybody that he's paired with versus the guys that are playing the easier course, getting a 2-stroke advantage. We'll just say 2 strokes for now. You can see here in the 20 lineups we just built 2,500 lineups. We simmed and ran the portfolio for 20 lineups. We got Xander, Aberg, Patrick Cantley, Cameron Young. All the guys on the South course had 0% in 20 lineups. Makes a lot of sense. And we had exposure for those guys in the first run. Pretty spread out, right? Like 22%, 16, 13, 14, 25. Well, Jason Day doesn't count. 13, 14. And then once we run the sims and we can see like how they actually fight and finish, they're not in any of the good builds, not in the top 20, building a decent portfolio. Jason Day's in 40%, Hideki's in 35. Literally, this does all the work in terms of canceling out guys that are playing the course that's going to give up a 2-stroke advantage to other equally good golfers. It's a massive difference. I mean, honestly, 6 to 12 points. So, I mean, they're already giving up, even with the standard deviation, like they're still exceeding it by like 35 to 45% of the time, even with their ceiling. Or even with their ceiling, the other guys are exceeding it that much. So let's see. Goddard, Matt McNeely. Let's see who the highest owned we got. Pretty balanced, which is nice to see. I don't love. You'll see different top players handle this differently as well. With Scotty in the field, there's always a difference, and we'll do some more like research shows looking at this. But Scotty tends to be polarizing for top guys. Maybe there's some collusion. I don't know. But there'll be guys that'll, play them they'll either lock them in to like the 5-5-5, play them in 70%, 80%, something like that, pretty high. And there'll be other guys that just zero them out. So obviously his salary's gotten up to a point of 14.2, and I think there's a stronger argument, especially like last week. I mean, I was on the wrong side of him winning that event just with it being volatile from a scoring standpoint. Like literally anybody, like a Corn Ferry Tour guy should be able to show up there and have a decent chance of, shooting 30 under par. It just happens that Scotty has gotten better somehow over the fall or the winter. But I think there's a big discrepancy in Scotty's stuff with his salary. Probably the same stuff would have happened if Tiger was around or DFS was around when Tiger was playing in his prime at 15,000 or something. He was 45% owned. But you'll see most of these guys, 40%, 40%, 40%. Most of the top players typically cap out around 40 to 50%. Very rarely do you see guys have crazy exposures at 50 or 60%. And again, Scotty's like the one exception. Most of them have pretty spread out ownerships, I think, just reflecting decent portfolio strategy. In terms of salary, most of these are balanced. And I think it's really just because the way these guys are priced in the courses that they're going to play. We could probably do this I'll tell you what, we are going to do this. We're going to tinker. Let me throw this in the background while this goes running. I'm going to do, make sure. Yeah, I'm just going to, just for fun, I'm going to run, we have a custom Sims tool. I'm just going to run some showdown projections for round 2, plug them into here, even though it's round 1. And I'm going to see how much this flips. It should flip literally identical, like mirror image. So let me do 20,000 for round 2. So this will pull in their round 2 tee times and the course they played. So like, I mean, obvious. Everything's going to be flipped and inversed, reversed. Everything's fucking versed. But this is running. We got 5,000 sims left. It's almost done. Hang in there. All right, so now Xander's our top guy. So let me plug this in. This is going to be fun. So build 2, we got that. We know what we're doing, right? Everybody that's playing the South course is just a literal Xing them out. Nobody's playing them. Let's just assume everything's reversed. So I'm going to import these projections. I want my fantasy points. I want standard deviation. Not fantasy points, standard deviation. These are fantasy points. Everything else, I don't care about. Eagles, birdies, etc. Just plug these in. All right. So now I got my new projections. So you can see these are very different. So, you know, Xander 38, Aberg 37. The high side, Jason Day was 46. Now with the new one, Xander's at 49, Aberg 47. Jason Day is down at 35.9. So now let's do the exact same thing we just did. We don't want 25,000 lineups. That could be tough. Let's do the same thing. Let's see. It'll probably take 45 seconds, hopefully 30 seconds. This will be interesting. I just think if we're gonna compare these two, it'll be the exact more so just to prove a point with the scoring, the expected scoring for the North course versus South course. Typically, I don't even talk about the scoring on a golf course because for a 4-day event, it doesn't matter. But for Showdown, I think this one has the least, you know, gray area in what North course yields versus what the South course yields on ceiling rounds for sure. Like there's going to be someone that shoots 65 or not 65, hopefully not 65, 67 on the South course tomorrow. And there's great conditions, but that means there are even better conditions for the North course. So let's see. We just ran this pretty clean for the most part. Again, you know, we build these lineups and they're pretty spread out in terms of Xander, Aberg, Cantley, 30, 28, 23. So let's do the same thing. We're going to run portfolio of 20 on these 25,000. This one's running a bit faster. 15,000 lineups takes a little long for little old fantasy golf bag, but 2,500, no issue. If we have to run Millie Maker lineups this year and we load in about 120,000 lineups, we might have to run it for like 2 days. We'll have to run it like as soon as the pricing comes out the prior Tuesday and kick it off. No, we'll speed it up. So we got, let me export these and re-import them so we can get that. Let's see how much this flips. It should be literally the opposite. Yeah, it is. I don't really care to go open Excel and compare these, but I think you guys can see this visually pretty easily. So when we did build 2, which were like the clean lineups, you can see all the guys basically that are playing the South course, 0, 0, 0, 0. Jason Day, 0, 0. Hideki, Keegan Bradley. All right, we'll use those 3 as an example. Now when we go to build 4, which we just copied in and did round 2 projections, basically, Jason Day, Hideki, Keegan are now zeros. So completely flipped. Nobody's crazy owned. Xander, 45% in 20 lineups, very reasonable for the highest projected guy on the easiest course. But again, if we look through, apologies for clicking through it so fast. I get so excited when we start looking at exposures, crazy. But we got literally everybody that's playing the South Course is a fade. So these are the default projections. If I imported back the custom, it'll make more sense actually. So let me do that. Otherwise, people are going to be so confused if they watch this back. Let me do, I don't even care about standard deviation at this point. So there you go. So you can see all the guys that have the drastically lower projection have the zeros for exposure. Jason Day is 0. He's in 30% for round 1. Hideki. So basically, if you're playing Showdown tomorrow and then Friday, your lineups are going to be completely the opposite. Hideki, Keegan zeros. Literally everything is just backwards. And I am going to download this and run it right next to each other. Let's see what this shows. See if I can do it quick and don't bore anybody else together. Where'd it go? Bear with me. We'll get it in 1 minute. Pretty quick with Excel. Pretty quick with a lot of things actually, but those aren't always good to be quick in. Let's do this one. I'll pull up Excel. I know it's probably sharing the other screen for now, but let me pull this up. It will not share. It will not share Excel. Okay. That's all right. You guys get the point. It's we'll save that Excel tutorial for another day. But yeah, so for tomorrow though, this is basically the pool or the exposures that I would most likely look at. Obviously, my main point for walking through Classic and then Showdown is the course discrepancy in scoring is a pretty big one. Like 1 stroke's a pretty big difference. 1.5 to 2.5 is a huge difference. Especially when it comes to an extra birdie around. That 1 extra birdie around, 1 less bogey around is a huge difference. All this stuff is pretty easily, calculated in projections. So using the projections to your advantage. Let's see. Yeah, so just going down the list. Any of these guys that are playing the South Course, just throw them out. So, oh, that was fun. Let's see if there's any questions. I don't see any. All I see is Michael Block going to 4 aces. That'd be fun. Let's see. Anything else? Let's look at the weather really quick, and then we'll get out of here. We'll get rid of Sudarshan. So you can check out the weather at Fantasy Golf Bag. This is free. Pretty easy way just to get a quick snapshot. I know guys use Windy or Wind Finder, and that's fine. This is still like right on the golf course. Each week it gets updated to the golf course in a pretty easy way for you to go look at the weather broken out every couple hours. So I think it's going to be very low scoring. We got 7 a.m., 10 a.m. in the morning, and guys tee off a little bit later, I believe. So we'll say 10 a.m., 3 miles per hour, 4 mile per hour gusts. Basically like last week, pretty prime. A little bit picking up in the afternoon, but guys should be done by then. And then for Friday, I think it's exact same. Yeah, 4 miles per hour, 5 gusts. Not sure, honestly, how that's possible, how 6 can be steady and 5 gusts, but I'm not a meteorologist. So, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. Saturday, more of the same, 72 degrees. I mean, it's perfect weather. I mean, guys should be tearing it up. And then same for Sunday. 4 miles per hour to 7 in the afternoon. Good scoring. So I think 10 under par is in risk. I'm not even sure what the scoring prop is. Spaz would probably know in our Discord. But yeah, take the unders on some scoring props. Overs on birdies, etc. Anything else? I don't think so. I mean, we could look at some matchups and throw out some EV matchups really quick. For the farmers, we got 3 balls and we got head-to-heads. So we could run like a quick parlay and just maybe have like a community parlay win. 3 balls is more fun. They win a lot less in terms of parlays. So let's just do all the sports books. We'll just see what they show up. Everyone should have the way matchups work. Head-to-head's a little bit different with 3 balls, but basically every sports book should have the exact same group matchups. So typically running all the books is not a big deal. And honestly, when we're parlaying it, I'm not nitpicking. I got the best. It's hard. You can't really nitpick across books anyways for parlays. So defeats the purpose. These are the top matchups, I guess. Smotherman. Who is Smotherman even playing? It's just 3 balls. Oh yeah, 3 ball. That's why. Celinda, Mark Geddes, who's the worst player in the field. There we go. So Smotherman, Sam Stevens over Luke List and Danny Walker. Those are all the top guys. So let's first run a quick little 5-leg. And we'll run a bunch. Let's just see. So this will run 2 to 10 leg parlays and sim them. Let's see. You can see the EV starts to drop quite a bit the further we go down, which is correct. There's a nice little spike here at the 7 legs. Let's see who this is. Might do a 7-leg parlay. He's already got Rasmus Nørgaard Peterson in it, and I'm excited about that. Davis Riley's in it. Not excited about that. So let's do a 3-leg parlay. I don't know if I can copy this and throw it in the chat, which I don't even know what chat I would use. So I'll just say it. Got Rasmus Nørgaard Peterson, 3 balls, whoever he's paired with. I don't know who he's paired with. Aberg, Neil Shipley, Austin Smotherman. We like a lot of Austin Smotherman tomorrow. Sam Stevens, Adrian Dumont de Chassart, Davis Riley. A little 0.17% EV on a 7-leg parlay. Payouts 235.5 to 1, depending on your book. So it's going to win about 0.6% of the time. So maybe round robin that, so we don't go bankrupt on one parlay. And then let's do, what did I want? Oh yeah, 2-leg head-to-heads. That's what I wanted. So let me run the same thing. This will be easier to bet. So hopefully you guys got the 7-leg. It's still right here. I'll leave it up for one more second. If you are curious about the second piece of this, a lot of it is crossover. A couple guys get swapped out. Not saying that's a great thing because I do like Rasmus Nørgaard Peterson. But yeah, Christopher Reeton and McNeely gets added into this one. Take out Davis Riley and take out Nørgaard Peterson. That's the swap. So if you want to play 2, 3's a little bit different with Higo, Pearson, Cootie, all pretty good, honestly. It's just probably going to be some idiot like Davis Riley. That ruins that. Let's do the 2-ball real quick. Let's do all the books. All right. So definitely better EV. At least for the top ones. I also don't want, let me think. I kind of want 3-ways because the voids, in my opinion, at least, there's value in different spots, but I don't really care. I don't really care to have voids. Like I just want the 3-ways, which we don't have any 3-ways. Fantastic. So I guess I'll just have to run it. Disregard that comment. Let's see what looks appealing. I mean, the 2-leg and 3-leg is pretty big. This 3-leg's huge. So if you want to make money, this is probably what you want to play. Yeah, let's do that. We'll do a 7-leg YOLO on the 3-ball, and we'll do a couple of these 3-leg parlays. All look pretty good. We'll look at the players in them in just a second, but 0.5% to 0.67% EV. You're talking about a 6 to 1 return on 3 head-to-head matchups in each. So Michael Thorbjornsen over Denny McCarthy, Garrick Higo over Greaserman, Denny McCarthy over Koepka. Good luck with that one. but we'll play it. Thorbjorn Olesen over Kiefer. Ryan Gerard over Bezadenhout. Penge over Finau. And then the last one, we'll just do the top 3. Thorbjornsen over McCarthy again. This doesn't even make sense. So the head-to-heads are all effed up in terms of the there's no correlation. It's just all just numbers. So throw out the first one. I don't even want to bet. I already have a bad feeling about Denny McCarthy over Koepka. But now we're running a train on Thorbjornsen beating McCarthy and then McCarthy beating Brooks. It could probably going to work out. But I'd rather just play 3 individuals that are not going to be correlated. Because now if Koepka wins, it's just going to be, it ruins it. And if Denny McCarthy, well, I guess that doesn't matter. Michael Thorbjornsen can win and then McCarthy loses. I'd rather not do that. We already beat Denny once. Now I don't want to root for him. The third one, Thorbjornsen and McCarthy over McCarthy, yes. Cantley over Harris English, yes. Siwoo Kim over Hogard, Nikolai. We'll take that. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, they're individual matchups, but the odds of basically running a train on Olesen to beat McCarthy and then McCarthy to beat Koepka, you should probably get better odds than this. So we'll do a replacement. Xander over Cameron Young, Adam Scott over Rose, Thorbjornsen over Eric Cole. Like, yeah, the 3 balls are simple. The head-to-heads, I don't know where books come up with these. They just do a wish list. So, all right, I think that's it. Didn't have a ton of value on the betting. Top 5s on, what book was that? I want to say it was... I think it was Bet365, to be honest, which I can't bet on. On the top 5s, I think it was Patrick Rogers had pretty strong. Harris English shows it now for top 5. I think top 5 and top 10, if I'm not mistaken, for Patrick Rogers, unless he's got nuked, which it looks like he has. So disregard that as well. So yesterday, Rogers had a pretty solid, I think he was almost 10-1 on Bet365 for a top 10. And he's now slightly negative in terms of EV for what we got. So the best ones, Harris English, Bet365, 10-1 for a top 5. We want to do some make cuts or top 20s. Really not much. You got to go down the board a bit. So that's it. I don't want to bore you to death on sifting through all of these at this late in the week. It's slim pickings. You can just look at FanDuel and DraftKings if that's the only books that you play on, or just Bet365. We're running out of really strong options in all these, but these are where the sim shakeout. Xander, Aberg, Cameron Young, Cantley, JJ Spawn. Everything's pretty much status quo for this week. So with that being said, I think I'm good. I'm finished building out these lineups. Got Showdown. Do some late Showdown as well. Same principles for the North Course, but a smaller field. So the exposure is going to be interesting. Everyone's going to jam North Course late, and the field's already cut in half in the late slate. Actually, probably more than half. So I think that is a show. We're in an hour. A little bit more than I wanted to do, but I think that'll do it, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Got a nice crew here. As always, you guys know where to find me. You can find me here on X, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can find me on Twitter X at RedGetCheek. You can also find us at fantasygolfbag.com. Always happy to answer questions or talk data. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week at the Farmers Insurance Open. Should be a fun cut sweat, and looking forward to a fun weekend sweating some lineups with you guys. All right. Best of luck. Have a great Wednesday night. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great year. See you guys.